here we are.
Yeah.
Thomas with Turner Staffing Group.
Yes.
Welcome to the line.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate that you're willing to sit down and have a conversation with us.
Anytime.
So don't say that. I'll hold you. I'll be back.
You've obviously already done one with Keaton.
Yeah.
For the Turner mining side of what we do. We are a big believer in making sure that this style of industry voice is elevated. So if there's anything we can do, I really mean anytime.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate what Turner has done in general, just in, at Blackline, we're all about the skilled trades across the board. But, I grew up in the trades. I did electrical work in quarries, in mines, and it was never communicated that it was sexy. It was never communicated that it was a good career in it. As matter of fact, a lot of people sometimes don't even realize that a mine is there.
Yeah.
And so I love what you guys decided to do and how you took a different approach.
Sure.
It was actually pretty ballsy.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people don't necessarily know kind of my heritage in all of this. So I actually grew up in and around construction. Family's been in construction in the Washington, D.C. area forever.
That's my neck of the woods.
It's interesting that, and obviously we're here in Bloomington, Indiana currently. This is Keaton's hometown, which is why we're here. But what you just said about the trades not being sexy, I am pretty well a good example of that. Relatively intelligent kid, like did fine in school, all that kind of stuff. And it was like my dad, it's like, hey, like I want you to go to college.
Yeah.
I want you to not go to the trades.
Yeah.
He grew up in the trades and that's like his background, but he always wanted something more for me. And I put that in air quotes for those who aren't watching. I say that because to your point, I don't necessarily believe it's more, right? And when there are lots of career paths that shouldn't require college and don't really need that burden put on people, whether that's a debt burden or even just a time burden, because you're delaying potentially really good earning years for you.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot, and I've bounced into different industries. I've worked in agriculture. I've worked for large corporations. I've worked for other startups in technology. There's something that always brings you back to something very tangible.
Oh yeah.
Which is just a powerful thing, and I appreciate what you said about Turner. All that credit goes to our people. Like, the reason why we're able to do ballsy things, edgy things, forward-thinking things is because we have a heck of a team.
Yeah.
And they are ballsy, forward-thinking, edgy, and constantly trying to push to be better themselves, but it also pushes the organization to be better as a whole.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that I even see publicly, and we're seeing throughout the industry. There are a few outlier companies that are deciding we're going to do it differently. And even in talking about your dad, my dad was a tradesman as well. And when I grew up, the thought was, we really can't make a good living doing this. You really can't have a good life doing this. And part of that, I think, comes from companies are also changing the way that they operate in culture.
Yeah.
I just was talking with you about the Heritage Group, which is another company here in Indiana. Yeah. And they are big on what they call generational thinking and culture.
Yes.
And I think in construction, mining, the trades in general, because we work with things that are tangible that you can touch.
Yep.
We tend to not think about the untangibles that we can't touch.
Correct.
And we've what I see as a difference, and I even see it from Turner's perspective and Heritage's perspective and these other companies, is the investment in culture and people.
Oh yeah. Let's be clear. Like, you can talk about a company. All a company is a group of people organized to go accomplish some objective, right?
Yeah.
And so without people, and in our opinion, without putting people first, you don't really have a company.
Yeah.
And so, when we think about it from a values lens, like, in what are Turner's values, they're all people oriented because the team is the company. There's no difference between those two things.
Your greatest investment isn't the trucks, isn't the
No.
equipment.
No.
It's the people.
Keaton says they're spoons and forks, and I completely agree.
I love that they're spoons and forks.
Yeah, they're tools to accomplish a task. How well a task is accomplished is always about the human, and is very, there is a difference in an ineffective tool and an effective tool, but the success or failure of that objective is a human thing.
I agree. Do you think that that's ever going to change?
It's a great question, and I worked in technology previously. We hear a lot about autonomy, AI, machine learning, all these kind of buzz terms that are.
Well, and
very
it's even in your
digital
industry. I've seen trucks that drive by themselves.
You are right, and they do. I think that context matters a lot. And I believe human beings are much better at processing context than tools are today. Can that change? Sure. And I think technology will continue to progress. I still don't think it ever fully removes the human.
I would agree.
My approximation, hypothesis, if you will, on the future would be
We're really going deep here on the line.
Yeah, it's like and again, it isn't like it's what I believe, but I believe that the human role will still always be focused on making sure that it is the most effective, most contextual way of accomplishing the objective. Yeah. Which again, I don't know that the machine really ever gets to.
Yeah, I agree.
Plus, the other reality is, and especially when we talk about mining, it's not stagnant. It's dynamic by nature. It's constantly evolving and changing. Whether you're, chasing an ore seam or things like that, right now, current technologies, they're approximating what is, below them. Yeah. Well, now new information comes in. How do you respond to that?
Isn't that crazy?
That? Yeah.
Like if we would go back, I mean, how far would we have to go back? So I live in a state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
And so I remember probably a decade ago, the Marcellus Shale thing came up. And one of the reasons that it was such a big deal was they changed the way that they drill for wells.
Yes.
Where they can actually go horizontally once they get down there. And it's like, we couldn't even think of that years ago.
And that is a technology that really transformed oil and gas, exploration as well as development of oil and gas. But it didn't remove the human being. No. If anything, it made some of the tasks that the human being is doing more valuable. Yeah. And that's the part of where, we just don't believe that technology removes human beings. That's not what we see. As a matter of fact, most technology actually means we need more human beings. They're just doing a higher value add work.
I think that's the important thing of being a human that is willing and able to learn different processes.
Oh, for sure. We talk a lot about being a learner, a lifetime learner. Keaton and I did a leadership development program. I call it like a boot camp. It's like a 52-week program. You are diving in really deep, both personal exploration on that, but also, really thinking about, okay, how can I lead more effectively and how can my team lead more effectively? And one of these kind of mindset shifts, we like to use little models, is don't be a knower, be a learner. Yeah. Ooh. Whenever you say, and it is, again, I have to remind myself of this all the time.
Sounds like something I've told my 16-year-old son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have two, my kids are a little younger. I have a almost 10-year-old and almost 8-year-old. And when they say things to me like, well, Dad, I know that. And it's and you're right. You might know that 2 + 2 is 4, right? Okay, fine. But I don't want you getting in the habit of acting like you know. Yeah. I want you getting in the habit of acting, well, one, with some humility, because I do think that's important also. But 2, with a focus on curiosity, a willingness to learn, a desire to constantly be evolving. And from when you think about how technology changes in industry, and let's go back to the oil and gas example, in horizontal drilling, right? If you are working at an oil and gas field, you had to learn and adapt to that new technology. And again, it made you more valuable. So there's absolutely a payoff, if you want to think of it, to doing that. But I think that whole approach of being a learner rather than assuming you know, because we've done this for X amount of time or whatever, well, guess what? Things change.
Yeah.
You know, the cell phones in our pockets change communication.
Oh my gosh.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When my first cell phone didn't even flip open.
The old Nokia brick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had one of those also.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that being a lifelong learner is actually a huge process.
Yeah.
You know, I was just talking with someone the other day, and we were talking about neural pathways and the way they're formed in the mind. They actually say that it's like a hot knife and butter or whatever. Like these grooves appear in your mind, and you have to retrain those grooves, and it takes something like 18 months to get that. Cool. Well, it's ridiculous. It's like that helps understand why it's so difficult.
Yeah.
And the mind wants the easiest path. It wants the easiest path.
Yep.
So it's like it works those pathways, and so when you have to learn something new and change it. And so I think that's really important in being a lifelong learner. I think it would cover all industries, but in the industries that we're talking about, it's even more important.
Oh, for sure. And again, your example of horizontal drilling in oil and gas is a great example. What is happening on a mine site or on an oil and gas site now with that technology change is different than the activity that was happening pre that technology change.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think in a lot of ways, and we're seeing this kind of refocus both from a geopolitical perspective, but also from like even a technology investment perspective into foundational industry.
Yeah.
You know, some people call it heavy industry, you know, whatever. I'm not specific on the term, but you're watching technology now come into those spaces, which I think makes being a lifelong learner even more important in our spaces rather than just in the U.S. as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. And we, obviously, our focus is U.S., right? You know, Turner Mining and Turner Staffing are domestic firms or U.S.-only firms.
For now.
For now. But I think we also are an America first. You know, we have an America first kind of orientation towards the market.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think, this is your home.
Yeah,
it
of
should
course.
be.
Exactly. It's the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. So tell me a little bit about your origins. So you're a DC boy.
Yeah.
You know, you're told, I know you probably love that label I just gave you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, your dad tells you, go to college.
Yep.
Don't go this way.
Yep.
And now here you are. How'd you get here?
So, and I did go to school, fortunately graduated, right, and all those things. I originally went straight into business and working in industry. So I first worked in defense. There's a lot of defense industry around the Washington, D.C. area. That's home. You know, as many people know, you included, a career is not a straight line. And a lot of times, and this is part of why I'm so passionate on the Turner Staffing side in particular, a lot of times your network determines your context, which determines your next step.
So say that again. A lot of times your network
determines your context. So kind of who you know and what opportunities could be put in front of you is due to your network. Those opportunities are your context, right? What could I go do as my next job? Yeah. And then that leads to your next step. So what opportunities are in front of you? Kind of, most of the time we choose one. Yeah. Right. It's not to say that you can't go focus on opportunities that are outside of your network. It's just often those are not surfaced to you organically. Right. Right. And so for me, we had friends of ours that were managers in companies that were defense firms. They were able to make the right introductions. Yeah. You do your interviews and you get the job, right? And so I worked in defense for a while. I then actually decided to go back to school. So I doubled up on school. I went and got a master's degree.
Show off.
Yeah.
I have a master's too, but it's not the same kind.
No. And I viewed it as a way for me to broaden my network.
Yeah.
Right. It was a way
Good perspective
for me to create more opportunity for myself. And I would give that advice to anybody who's on their own career journey. Find ways to create more opportunity for yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. You should own it. That then led me into even larger corporate America jobs, but I ended up getting focused on agriculture, which was really fun.
Really?
Yeah, and we use this phrase here at Turner that if it's not grown, it's mined. And so, the origination of everything is either, it's getting grown in the ground, which is the agriculture, heritage that I have a little bit of. And then the other side is it's either extracted from the ground, right?
Yeah.
It's mined, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we would lump like oil and gas and those styles of things into, right? It's getting extracted from the ground.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
So our whole, my background it's a kind of funny background, but I've been at the beginning of both versions of that supply chain, right?
That's pretty cool.
So, it's been neat. And then after working in agriculture, I worked in technology, went to a Silicon Valley backed kind of like pure tech firm. But again, we were focused on foundational industry. It's actually how I got introduced to Keaton originally.
Really?
Is through technology coming into the mining space. And so we had a mutual friend who's Keaton's business partner. He made the introduction, and the rest is history.
So you remember we don't edit things. So I'm going to ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable.
No, go ahead.
Because I like to do that. So you met Keaton through that friend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who is Keaton's business partner in Turner?
So clearly there was an impact that Keaton made on you.
Yes.
Because you're here and you're wearing a vest that says Turner Staffing Group.
Yeah.
So what was it about Keaton that triggered this?
So I would say it's three things. The first is we share the same value set. Without that, I don't think anything else matters. And so, Keaton and I have a similar faith.
Mm-hmm.
We have a similar approach to family.
Mm-hmm.
We have a similar approach to what we would want in any organization that we're a part of, whether that's us leading it or just being a part of it.
Yeah.
So when I talk about values, it's whole life values, not just in an office values.
It has to be.
It has to be.
It has to be. I agree.
And to sign up, and I'll tell you about what we all each signed up for here in a minute. But to sign up for that, it has to start there. So that's one. Two, we have a similar vision, and I think some of that comes out in how we approach decisions and how we think about what trade-offs we're willing to make and not willing to make. And so that vision for what impact we can make in this industry. Yeah. And again, Turner is mining primarily. Turner Mining is only mining. Turner Staffing is mining primarily. We also do work in utilities. We also do work in heavy civil because it's very similar skill sets and network of individuals. But we had a similar vision for what we could go do from an impact perspective. And then third, we are just big believers in investing in young people.
That's pretty obvious, actually.
And I think it comes through in how Turner kind of approaches a lot of things. But also, we in our own stories have examples of how we were invested in when we were young. Because now I'm old. And so
it's funny how that happens, isn't it?
You just wake up and then you're old.
My kids love to tell me.
Yes, same with mine. And so it is that kind of, you could think of it as like a next generation focus.
Yeah.
If you kind of wanted to give it like terminology, is just an important thing. I didn't want to go be, in the trenches every single day with someone who was looking back in time. I wanted them to be looking forward in time. And the way you do that through human beings is you end up having a next generation focus. So, but it's those three things: values, I would say how we want to, like, what we want to go accomplish, and then, kind of that focus towards the next gen.
So you would say values, impact, and focus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think I love when you talk about your investment in young people. I remember when I started my first company, I was like, well, I want to hire the best.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, the most experienced, the best people. And I remember thinking that was the way that you did it. And in hindsight, and it takes time, but in hindsight, what I've learned is when I tried to rush it and hire this talent, compared to this is what I've learned, and it cost me a lot of money. What I learned was I would rather the definition of the best is different than what I thought.
Yeah.
And this is the best. A young man or a young woman that is willing to give it their all.
Yes.
And that their values align with mine. They want to make an impact and that they're able to focus.
Yes.
And when they do that, it is a game changer.
We talked about, why I was attracted to what Keaton wanted to do and why I kind of signed up for this. You could also take those three things and say, when you get values alignment, impact alignment, and focus alignment, that might be the best talent you could put into that opportunity, right? And so that whole kind of, Keaton uses phrases like the best player should play.
Yeah.
Kobe didn't sit on the bench, right? Like things like that. And, Kobe joined the NBA when he was 18.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but he had both a values alignment towards what those organizations were trying to do. He had the vision and the impact that he was going to go create. And then he had, frankly, the resiliency and focus to go make that happen.
Yeah.
That's the person that I want every single time.
Absolutely.
Yes. Would them having a, some knowledge base in addition to that be an extra add-on?
Yeah,
Of
but
course.
without those three
Without those three,
foundational pieces, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. They could have the most knowledge about any topic, and if they don't have those first three, it gets really, there will be times where it will be really challenging and potentially, to your point, costly.
Well, everything costs.
Yeah.
Well, I would even go a little bit farther to say, and maybe even, when Keaton says you have the best player, they need to play. I agree. One of the things that I will say, if we're using the sports analogy, I talked with a business owner once, and he goes, I don't want A players. And I was like, what do you mean? I know, right?
Yeah.
It throws you off.
That does throw me off.
And he says, I want a solid B player. And I said, you have to explain that to me. I need to understand.
Okay.
And he was successful, so I was listening.
Right.
And he goes, if you have an A player that thinks that they are it, and he goes, it is not worth the drama.
Yeah.
And he goes, but if you have a B player, and they want to strive towards being an A player with you, they are far better than an A player that's thinks that they're better than the whole team.
I know you will know this name, but I'll also kind of explain it. So Simon Sinek,
Yes.
who is just obviously very gifted at
Yeah.
kind of thinking about business problems. He does a lot of homework on organizations.
Yeah.
And one of the stories he tells, so this is not, people can go find this. One of the stories he tells is how SEAL Team 6, the most high-performing organization probably on the planet, how they go about trading off what SEALs make SEAL Team 6. So these are all A players, right?
Yeah,
These are
absolutely.
Like, come on, you get in the SEALs, you're an A
Yeah.
player. But there's a kernel of what you just told that I think is the differentiator between SEAL Team 6 and other SEAL teams. And again, this is the story told by Simon, who did the research
Right,
of this.
right.
He was talking to the leader of SEAL
Come
Team
on,
6.
this is good, Thomas.
And he said, okay, if you had, and he kind of forced him into choosing, but he said, if you had talent on one axis and the level of trust on another axis, how do you make the trade-off between those two? The guy said, oh, it's easy. We pick trust every time. And Simon's like, excuse me? Right? Because again, back to the A-player thing.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, let's be clear. We're all talking about quite talented individuals, right?
Yeah.
They're capable.
Yeah.
But what gets someone onto SEAL Team 6 is that they over-index on trust, not over-index on talent.
Yeah. That's where it's at.
And I think I'd rather have a B player who over-indexes on trust, who is going to build trust, lead with trust, live with trust, that's going to be you are going to have a better, higher functioning team that way.
I think it's changing our perspective and the way that we measure it, because the way that we're describing B players, they are A players.
Of course they're A players.
I mean, and what we're talking about as the A players, quite honestly, are D players. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean,
because they don't have trust. It's and again, sports analogies get overused, but it's the wide receiver who just says, throw me the ball every time. It's like, well, okay, I get it. And yes, you're super talented, so throwing you the ball is effective, but it is not effective 100% of the time.
Right.
And so I'm not going to throw you the ball on every single play.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay, what is one thing that you cannot live without?
I mean, the first thing I would say is my wife.
So she's a thing? Like, I think I don't know if we can go that deep here.
So no, where I'm going with it. Well, and then, it's a great question. I tend to go straight to people. That's kind of like, when I hear thing doesn't even register. It's like, what people can you not live without?
Yeah.
If we're talking about like
a tool or a piece of gear,
thing, probably overused is like your phone. Mostly because it's probably the best multi-tool that's out there, right?
Yeah.
Like people, obviously it's the way to communicate with a disperse, and we're spread. I like to say, this is true both Turner Mine and Turner Staffing, but Turner Staffing, it's spread even more. Turner Staffing is people in Miami and it's people in Fairbanks. So like we're about as far apart as you can get.
Yeah.
And so we have to use communication tools. Beyond communication and people, I don't know that I have something that I have to have. Yeah. I'm a pretty, I don't have a watch. The only thing I carry is basically my phone on me, because it's the way to communicate with people.
So your wife and your phone, those are the things that you can't live without.
I can't live without. Yeah.
So you talk about communication and you talk about Turner and how you guys are spread. That leads me to an interesting question that I want to talk with you about. We live in this world of constant connection and communication.
Oh, yeah.
And in business, here you guys are in Indiana, and you're in the middle of all of these different time zones, these different places. How do you handle, as someone, in a higher level, managing people in many different facets, how do you handle that communication while protecting your time?
Yeah. I tell this to anybody that joins our team, and especially people that join our team in a management capacity, whether that's like truly people reporting to you or even just owning a process.
Right.
You are a manager of that thing. I like to draw an organizational chart upside down. So your traditional organization chart has, 1, 2, 3 people at the top of it, and then has lots of people reporting up and constantly kind of it ever growing. So it looks like a pyramid, if you will.
Yeah.
I like to flip that upside down. So I view it as my job and my responsibility to serve all of the people on my direct team, who then serve all of the people on their direct teams, et cetera, et cetera. So I view it upside down, and I do it purposely because we need to support and serve those. I also have that faith outlook. I believe that service is the way to leadership. Fundamentally, the greatest leaders serve.
I agree.
And so, I would say I view it as my responsibility to be available, but I also view that as a way to serve my family as the head of my household.
Okay, I'm listening.
So
you got me now.
It's not just, I think when people focus in very specific areas and only answer questions about their life professionally, I think that's foolish.
Okay.
You have to think about your life holistically, and especially if you're a leader.
Yeah.
And so are there times where I know I need to go serve my family? Good example. My son did this big presentation for his class at school. He's in 4th grade.
Right.
Okay. Do I take the time to go run across town for 45 minutes in the middle of the day to serve my son, who, again, I would draw that family chart the exact same way I talked
Right.
about that organizational chart. Yeah, I do it.
Yeah.
Because I know it is important. And I also know when I get a phone call where an employee needs our help at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
because they're on the West Coast and it's only 6 p.m. for them, or they're in Alaska and it's only 5 p.m. for them,
Right.
yeah, I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to that individual. So it is just as important, in my opinion, when you are a leader of any organization, and again, you could include your family unit in this,
Yeah.
you need to serve them and serve them as best you can. It means that I don't live in a lot of rigidity.
Yeah.
Right? My schedule is almost by nature
You're very
incredibly
fluid.
flexible and
Yeah.
fluid and dynamic. And I like that in the fluid comment that you made. You know, Monday doesn't look like Tuesday, doesn't look like Sunday, doesn't look like Saturday, right?
Right.
You know, there are different needs, and we have people working all the time. And so, yeah, I mean, I have to support that. It's what I think my responsibility set is.
Yeah.
Again, both family as well as Turner.
I love your inverted pyramid comment. I once had a conversation with a guy, and he talked about, you ever hear someone talk about climbing the ladder?
Oh, yeah.
And I love the way that he said it. He said, well, my job is to hold the ladder.
Ooh.
And he's like, he goes, you know, and he was the CEO. He was the top, the way that but he said, he goes, no, I'm at the bottom holding the ladder so that it's secure for those that they can continue to grow in the company. And that's my job.
Yep.
And I think that is an important concept that, you know, as we're all growing in our industries, one, it keeps you at a better perspective to see everything,
Sure.
especially if you use the pyramid analogy.
Sure.
When you're at the tip, but you're looking up at everything, you can see everything.
Yes.
When it's the other way, it's like you can't see what people are dealing with.
Correct.
Yeah, that's good.
Correct.
That's good.
Yeah, I view the ultimate act of leadership is the ultimate act of service.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we talked about with
One of the greatest leaders in the world, who people still talk about 2,000 years later,
is Jesus.
is
Christ.
Jesus, and he was the ultimate servant leader.
Exactly. And where I go with this is, like, we talked about the trade-off for family.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what about the trade-off for friends?
Yeah.
What about the trade-off in whatever you do, whatever organizations you're involved in outside of work,
Yeah.
right? Whether that's you help build a house for Habitat for Humanity, or you serve your local church, or anything like that, you also need to continue to think. And again, if you're going to think like a true leader, you need to think in those ways.
Yeah.
And so how you can build kind of that bent towards service into all of that, I think helps you set your priorities for any given day or hour
Yeah.
or whatever whatever time increment you want to think about. And that's important.
No, I think that's really good. There's a book, I would recommend it to you. It's called The Servant Leader. It's
Okay.
written by a guy by the name of James. I can't think of his name. I'll have to send you a link.
I would love it. The one that I love, and not to keep bringing up Simon Sinek, but the guy's legit.
No, every book.
Yeah, leaders eat last.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, so we kind of talked about, servant leadership, maybe more from like a values lens or a faith-based lens. What Simon Sinek talks about in that book has nothing to do with that.
Right.
He talks about what he believes are some of the highest performing organizations. We already talked about SEAL Team 6. He uses the United States military as one of his examples. And actually, it's why the book is titled Leaders Eat Last.
Yeah.
Because he talks about what happens when everybody goes into the mess hall. It is not that the highest ranking general, colonel, whatever, goes at the beginning of the line. They literally eat last.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, so again, we can talk about it from a values lens, and Turner's a very values-oriented company, and that kind of fits me. But even from just having a high-performing, very large organization, there is a lot to be said for leaders eating last.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think it does a whole lot of things when you do that. It helps your perspective as a leader.
Yes.
Because I've been at events and things where I've been involved in leadership from a mess hall standpoint, and
Yep.
I've eaten less, and I mean, I'm hungry. I'm
all hungry.
I'm watching everybody else eat, and I'm like, I've even come to the point where I'm like, hey, you need to move a little faster,
Hey,
But-
I'm happy to eat last, but come on.
But
can
I
you be
mean,
considerate?
it gives you a perspective because you can see what's going on. Again, back to the pyramid thing,
Yes.
and that's what we need to do.
Yes.
And the book that I was talking about, he talks about, true servant leadership is leading with authority, not with power.
Ooh.
And it's like, you can get into a place where it's like you have the title and you have the power, but
Right.
you don't want to lead that way.
Yeah.
You want to lead with authority. And that's why I referenced Jesus as a leader, because he didn't lead with power, and he had the ultimate power.
Exactly.
He led with authority. And when you lead with authority, this is the crazy thing too. I think people don't realize, if you want to be a leader, you can't call yourself a leader.
No.
People have to follow you
Yes.
in order for you to be a leader.
Exactly.
And people don't follow people who use power. They want to follow people who speak and lead with authority.
Yes.
And
And serve.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, think about it. If you're listening and you're working somewhere, who do you want to work for? The guy that goes in front of you in the food line, or the guy that's like, hey, get what you need.
Yeah.
I got your back.
Yes. Yes.
That's the reality of it.
And honestly, I will say, speaking to like our community and frankly the community around this kind of audience and podcast, I actually think more blue collar, steel-toed boots, that group of people, I actually think gets this much better
Oh, I 100%
than
agree.
some like tech individual.
Do you know
from
why? I'll tell you why. The reason why is a lot of those blue collar people did that. They did the work in the dirt first.
Exactly.
So they know what it is.
So I'll tell a funny story. When I was, I
Good. It was getting dry. I'm glad you got a funny story.
I did construction while like in between years in college and things like that. I worked on construction sites, and I'm the low man on the totem pole, right? Totally. And so we, I'm helping, and we're building a building actually in Washington D.C. And I'm running around getting people supplies, whatever I need to do. They say, Thomas, I need this. Boom, I'm getting it. I'm pure helper, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we and this is not that you need to do this for two people, but I think it's funny in a way to show, like, to your point, everybody's kind of been through it, especially folks who have worked in the trades and done these style of tasks. So we have no elevator in the building. It's a 12-floor building. And we are kind of slowly but surely working our way up the building from a work perspective. We need to get supplies. We're now up to I think the 10th floor at this point in time. And we need to get supplies up there. And, everybody grumbles carry supplies up 10 flights of stairs.
Oh, yeah.
So at the end of the day, we're like, we're going to do a contest. And again, this is our foreman on the jobs idea. He's like, we're going to do a contest. And he goes, we're going to see how quickly people can get this stuff up.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm low man on the totem pole. I'm like, I'm gonna show my foreman I got this. I can do this. So I go flying up the stairs, and I'm like, boom, 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 get all this stuff up there, dump it down, come tearing back down the stairs, and get down to the bottom, and everybody's still there. And I was like, you guys all got up, and there's different flights of stairs, so we don't see each other.
Right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys got all your stuff up there already? They're like, yeah, go up and look. They're like, let's do it again. See if you can get us this time. You're young, you got better stamina than we do, all this stuff. I do it again.
Oh, my word.
As you can tell, you probably know where this is going. They didn't move anything. Now, I don't say that to you should take advantage of people and all this stuff,
Right.
but I say it as a funny story because I wanted to help, and my job was I am here to help. I will do. They could have just told me just keep carrying stuff up and down the stairs all day, and I would have done it. But it was funny because we turned it into a story. It made the team a lot, actually in the weirdest way, trust a lot more because this was a newer group of people getting together.
Right.
And this foreman kind of galvanized the team around, hey, look at that. We kind of tricked this college kid into doing all this work. And again, happy to do it. But it was fun. And the rest of the stuff is so funny. We come in the next morning. Foreman's like, hey, Thomas took 2 sets of stuff upstairs. Everybody else takes 2 sets of stuff upstairs.
Exactly.
And so it was never, his whole intention was it to like galvanize and
His
pull
heart
the team
behind
together.
it was right.
But it was so funny. And it's just a great story of me running up 10 flights of stairs.
I think that's the importance of people realizing too, when things happen, don't react right away.
No.
Like, the next day you come in and you see, oh, this is what, I mean, and anybody who is in the trades in any way, like, I mean, they sent me for the wire stretcher. Doesn't exist.
Exactly.
There's a free one for you. If you're
Yeah.
sent for the wire stretcher, it's not a thing.
Yeah, it's not there.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Tell me about Turner Staffing and Turner Mining, and tell me what the difference is.
Sure. So Turner Mining is your kind of prototypical mining contractor, right? Now, what Turner, from a Turner Mining perspective, we do a lot of services on site. So we're not a narrowly defined contractor where it's just, hey, if you need overburden removed, you call us. We do that.
Right.
But we do things all the way from that to capital projects and infrastructure that needs to be put onto a mine site to full turnkey mining, right? We'll take over an entire mine site. But that's mining contractor. So a way of thinking about it is Turner Mining Group owns a set of activities or a scope on a mine site. Turner Staffing does...
Can I just reverse a little bit here? Because
Sure.
I think a lot of people don't realize Turner Mining doesn't own the mine sites.
Oh, yeah. Okay, fair. I should have said that. So, yes, Turner Mining does not own mine sites. Turner Mining works for companies that own mine sites.
Right.
Again, might do all the activities on a mine site, but does not actually own the reserve or anything like that.
Exactly.
Turner Staffing Group is a talent provider. So there are scenarios where mines just need, you can call it the crew, if you want to think of it that way, or just need individuals and kind of specific skill sets. They might already have the majority of their team, but they don't have the rest of their team. And they will lean on us to deploy talent into their mines. So Turner Staffing Group is not a mining contractor as you would kind of think about it. They are truly just a talent provider. And that's anything from project-based to, we have people that have been on, mine sites doing different activities for years at a time. So, it kind of depends. Turner Staffing also does a wider array of activities. So we have geologists, core loggers, exploratory type things, which Turner Mining, does not do. Turner Mining comes in when a mine is ready to operate.
Right.
Versus Turner Staffing Group, all the way from exploratory all the way through to closure. There's also like closure activities that need to happen that oftentimes require a certain set of expertise that we can provide as well. So, we're on the Turner Staffing side, we are kind of whole life cycle of a mine, but think people only or talent only.
Right.
And we do that, again, from Fairbanks to Miami, across commodities, aggregates, kind of the works. And then, as I mentioned before, we also do this in utilities and in heavy civil, because oftentimes the skill set and activities that are being
They're very
done,
similar.
They're very similar.
Okay. So I'm operating a mining contractor company. Why would I call Turner when you guys are also my competitor?
Yeah. So, and we do support several other mining contractors on the staffing side. Couple reasons. One, we're a very transparent company, and so Turner Mining can only do so many mining projects at a given time.
Yeah. Right.
And yet we have, and I got to give credit where credit's due to the team, we have done a tremendous job of building a pipeline of talent. From January 1st of this year through November 30th of this year, this is crazy. We had 24,140 people with the U.S. right to work apply to join Turner Staffing and Turner Mining. And
now I'm starting to understand why you started a staffing company.
And so, and last year, that number for the whole year was like almost 12,000. I think it was like 11,700 something.
Okay.
So it's growing. We thought, Keenan and I thought that, the 12,000 people in a year was like the peak. We were like, oh, okay, that's as many as we're ever going to get. And now that we've more than doubled it this year, it's like,
wow,
holy smokes. So, and just to give like scale, like we're talking like we have 500 people in our firm.
Wow.
So we have a lot of people that we could go deploy, if you want to think of it that way. And when we think about on the Turner Staffing side, when we think about kind of like assignments, we view them as tours of duty, similar to how like the military would view them, where it's like, hey, there's this capital project at this mine, you know, you can go refine your skill set.
Yeah.
If they want to break into the industry, you know, there's lots of reasons why people would be interested in taking that opportunity. And so we provide those opportunities for people. And then some of them end up converting over to the mine owner themselves. Some of them end up being long-term staffed where, you know, this campaign, especially on the exploration side, right? Some of these exploration campaigns take a decade.
Isn't that amazing?
So that activity, it's like we're asking you actually to sign up for a pretty long tour of duty. You know, the military is like 2 years or less, right?
Right.
So sometimes we have opportunities that are really long tours of duty. Sometimes we have shorter ones. But yeah, we're always trying to match that opportunity to that talent's kind of like best next step.
Yeah.
And if we do a good job of matching that, we're serving our talent community, these applicants well.
Yeah.
And then we're serving the opportunity and kind of that mine or that utility firm or that heavy civil project or anything like that. We're also serving that well.
I think that's really one of the main reasons that I feel like we align, because you're literally capturing those skills that can only be learned by doing.
Yes.
And like, you know, when you talk about someone that their tour of duty might be a decade, well, the thing that you're getting out of that is you're gaining a skill that there's no other way to gain it.
Yes.
And then you have that, and listen, that tour of duty might be done, but then you have an asset skill that you're able to take that no one else has.
Yes.
Anywhere else that opportunity might exist.
And by the way, we can talk about those long-term tours of duty, but I would also say you can go work on a capital project for a year at a mine and learn things in that 1 year that you can then lever for the rest of your career. And so when we think about tours of duty,
I think it's hysterical that people that you can really judge people who they are.
I know.
Some people bend over and try to hide. Some people just walk by like they own the place.
Exactly.
So
and
it's great.
So that a lot of the people that are watching this, we are in our Turner office in Bloomington.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we run things live here. Like people are walking through, going to lunch, coming back, phone calls, conversations, all that kind of stuff. But yes, you do get a nice insight into people by putting a camera in front of them.
They all didn't appreciate that I said that.
No, of course, but I like it. What I think is interesting is like how fast can you upskill?
Yeah.
And how do you think about your own tours of duty as this? We talked about being a lifelong learner.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As a constant progression of upskilling via tours of duty. And again, the military does this at scale brilliantly, right? They have different ranks, different scopes, different all of these things. And, you know, our hope at Turner Staffing is that we can introduce that into these industries where, hey, we need to be thinking about young people's progression. Because, by the way, we talked about this earlier, young people's average tenure, so 25 to 34-year-olds average tenure, and this is from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, so this is like everybody in the United States, their average tenure with a given company, with their current company,
this is crazy,
is 2.7 years. If we start to think about that, that means they're moving jobs every 3 years.
That's crazy.
Which means 1/3 of 25 to 34-year-olds in any given year will leave your company.
That's wow.
And again, I'm not saying that there aren't high-performing firms where that's not the case,
right?
But the average isn't the bottom. The average is the average.
That's crazy.
And so when we talk to firms where we're a talent partner, we talk about how do we structure tours of duty that also fit what talent is asking for. And frankly, young people are asking for not just variety in role, they're asking for variety in firm.
Yeah.
And so
Provides a really unique opportunity for you.
It does, and it provides, I actually think it provides a really interesting opportunity for firms, and again, I'll use the military as an example, to design things in a way that is advantageous.
Yeah.
Where they can capture and value out of that rather than just kind of like constantly always push against it.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I think the other thing that you keep mentioning opportunity. And I shared with you how my business partner loves to talk about opportunity cost.
Yeah.
And just to give some context to that, and the reason that I say that is specifically like with staffing and learning these different things on these different tours of duty, you want to be aware of your opportunity cost.
Yes. What are you trading off?
Yeah. What are you trading
Yes.
off? And opportunity cost is like, sometimes, you might take this opportunity because, and back to what you said in the beginning, your network, this opportunity creates this opportunity and this opportunity. So you're in a place then where maybe not now, but later you have the opportunity that is far greater. And if you miss that moment, and that's why to younger people, like we talked about when we were in our 20s, what every decision weighs on you, like, oh, this is going to affect the rest of my life. The key is to not make decisions, but to keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to jump at opportunities. Like
Absolutely.
That.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, that's my own story.
What
right?
have you got to lose? You're 22 years old. Like, seriously, what have you got to lose?
I think anything that you are doing.
You miss it for 2 years, you'll be 24. Wow.
And by the way, and especially when we're talking to actually getting on the job skill.
Yeah.
You can always kind of, I'll say, get upskilled off the job. The on-the-job upskilling, that can only happen by taking these opportunities.
Absolutely.
Right? You can always watch YouTube videos or however you want to learn.
Any tradesperson out there is going to say that's fine to knock some dust off, but it's not going to teach you how to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so true. So true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the firms out there, they just need to start to pivot around how you're having a conversation and setting expectations with someone. Because just like how we're speaking to young talent right there.
Yeah.
My comment would be to whether it's the talent acquisition function or the HR function or whatever it is inside of a company, or sometimes they don't even have that. It's just the people who are running it. You do need to really understand what talent is asking for and try to find a way to marry that to an opportunity you can provide them. Mm-hmm. Because again, back to the definition of a company, it's just a group of people trying to go do something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, we've come to that point where I want to ask you the hardball question.
Okay.
What's a mistake that Thomas has made that he is willing to share, that he's learned from, that other people might not make that same mistake?
I can think distinctly of many mistakes. The one that I'll highlight is there was a period of time in my life where I was not values and faith focused. Mm. And I luckily, in that period of time, met my now wife. I was very focused on myself.
Yeah.
I was pretty reckless. And that period of time, I hurt a lot of people, like my family, and just hurt a lot of people who had, helped me grow up. Right. And I remember having conversations with my dad, with my mom about the life choices I was making. And I thought everything was great because I was high flying this and doing that and all that. And it's just, if I would not have met my wife, it's why when you ask what's the one thing you can't live without, my answer was my wife. Because if I would not have met her, I know I wouldn't be where I am today for sure. But I also...
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I also worry about where I would be. It's a good reminder to have the right people around you, because when the wrong ones are around you, and I had the wrong ones around me...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. And it was all personal, right? It was literally all personal stuff, not really anything to do on the career front. It was when I was in my young 20s, which is also kind of like that time where you tend to be a little rebellious. And that is not an excuse for it by any stretch of the imagination. When I talk to young people today, I'm like, guys, do not, like, I get wanting to like kind of spread your wings and find your way. There is a right way to do that and there's a wrong way to do that. I unfortunately would do the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely relate to what you're talking about. Like my wife is my best friend.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, I think people don't realize what that really looks like. and you know, my wife, she is kind to me, but she is not nice to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, by the way, one of the values at Turner is having a heart for people. That's our first value.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of people think, oh, well, that means like you love them and you care for them. True love and caring for someone.
Come on, this is good shit.
Is actually holding someone accountable.
That's exactly
when
what
they need to
it
be held
is.
accountable.
That is exactly what it is.
And I always use
no matter how uncomfortable it makes you.
Of course, and you have to. And trust me, my wife has held me accountable many a time, and I depend on that.
Yeah.
And I always use it back to like sports analogies and things, because a lot of people can relate to it, especially if you have kids and you coach a kid's sports team.
Oh, yeah.
The kid you are the hardest on is your own.
Yeah.
Almost by nature. Like you don't even have to try. It just happens.
It's because you see all of you in them.
Yes. And I will also speak very openly. You love your own kid more than you love those other kids.
That's totally not wrong.
And so it's like, okay, and that's why you're the hardest on them.
Exactly.
Because you love them the most.
Yeah.
And so I think about, that it's why my parents, when I was making stupid decisions, were the hardest on me and were speaking into me the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, if it wasn't for my wife, because, you don't do a good job of listening to your parents, I'm exhibit A of that. Like, if it wasn't for my wife, I don't know that I would have really ever listened.
Yeah.
But yeah, the people you truly love and care about are the people in some senses you end up holding to the highest standard.
Yeah.
And so we don't talk about it from a values perspective. Having a heart for people means, just like let them, whatever happens.
That's the opposite of love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually apathy.
I would say apathy and selfishness, because a lot of times when people don't do that, it's because it's going to make me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I don't want to have that conversation. And, in leadership and management, especially in business, we destroy people's lives and careers all of the time because we don't want to have that conversation because it makes me uncomfortable. They might come I might bring them into my office and say this to them, and they're going to get mad and they're going to throw something and they're going to whatever. I mean, grow a pair. Mm-hmm. Like, seriously, have the conversation, care enough about the. Exactly. We're not asking you to take a bullet.
No. And by the way, there are roles where that is the ask. And again, back to like, where is this done the best?
Yeah.
It is done the best there. And so I just, I'm, do I wish I wouldn't have done the things that I did? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Part of this is I believe in forgiveness and things like that. But like, it definitely changed my outlook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having to go back to my parents and just like flat out, like, fall on your knees and say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, that's humbling.
I think, I've been through some things like that in my life that were really, really, really hard. And I think that, and faith plays a huge part in this. Forgiveness plays a huge part in this. But the reality is, for who I am, I needed that pain at that level because I can be so dense that, okay, I've learned that. It's like a hot knife through butter and burned into my mind, and the importance of that. And I think that's sometimes important for us to recognize when we are in the midst of a hardship or an epiphany that,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, this is really hard and I got to deal with this and I got to go through this. Listen, there's a reason for that.
Yes.
And so turn it to something good, like what, and because of forgiveness and whatnot, you're able to look back on that and it's like, it's not dead.
No.
It's restored. And actually, it is even stronger than it was before.
Yes. And I agree on the stronger side. I think trials really are, and again, in my view of this, like the Lord's way of truly either adjusting your path or adjusting your outlook or your approach. It is the refinement.
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm not proud of that era of my life, but when you ask about like what is the mistake, like that is the mistake.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that's really important for people to hear that maybe are in the midst of that hardship and that mistake right now. It's not the end.
No.
It's only the end if you decide
if you let
to
it be.
quit.
Yeah, exactly. No,
exactly.
It does not.
Yeah. Venture onward.
Yes.
Like keep moving forward.
And find the things that are helping you venture onward. I talked about my wife.
Yeah.
And like her, and again, the Lord works in this way. Like as I'm going through that hardship, He puts people into my life that can walk with me and help me. And that, it's amazing.
Walking with people, I think, is really what it's about.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting that you're managing Turner Staffing Group.
Well, we have to. I think if we're going to be good leaders, again, whether that's of our own team or even like good stewards of all of these people that we've attracted attention from, we need to walk with people.
Absolutely.
And finding ways to get into the real discussion to walk with them. We talk a lot about how we evaluate. We talked about like what an A player was, but even like understanding what a best next step for someone is. Yes, I get it. They need to have like maybe some early indication of skill.
Yeah.
But most of the time when we talk about fit, which is like, that's the corporate word of like, when the talent matches the opportunity, it's like the right fit, right? Fit has nothing to do with their resume.
Yeah.
And has everything to do with them as a person.
Yeah. And
so when we're talking to talent, because we have teams of recruiters that are constantly talking to talent all day, every day, like our coaching to recruiters is we got to get to know that person, what they want, what they're seeking, where their own self-admitted weaknesses are, what like let's have like a real conversation with them. Let's not just go regurgitate their resume into a summary format. It's like, dude, to our point of technology, AI can do that. You can just spit out a summary of a resume. That's not, the resume is not the fit determiner, is a way of thinking about it. It is always the human being.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I used to, when I would interview guys in our electrical company, I'd say, I can teach you to be a good electrician.
Yes.
I can't teach you, I can teach you electrical work. I can't teach you to be a good worker.
Yes.
Like I can teach you how to do the work. I can teach you these things, but that character and that integrity, you either have that or you want that. Because if you don't, then none of this other stuff matters.
No. And back to the SEAL team example, they view trust as that thing. And to your point of high trust cultures have hardworking individuals. High trust cultures have values-oriented decision-making. High trust cultures don't have weak links. Yeah. Like all of these things that we talk about, and we talk about wanting to build these organizations. It's like, guys, then we need to be talking to people about that, not asking them, what class of haul truck have you driven?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, sure. Again, there is skill needed. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
We're talking about trades that are
But skill without
skilled.
trust is worthless.
Exactly.
It is
and so
worthless.
when you can have someone's resume and references talk to their work and their skill,
Yeah.
what you need to be evaluating for is them as
Yeah.
a human. We want
Yeah.
good human beings.
Yeah. Come on. That's good, man. Thomas, thank you so much for stepping up to the
Anytime,
line.
Josh.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's
Thanks,
been a
brother.
great pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks. See you.